When you're asked to classify conics given their equations, you need to remember how to put all of your equations into standard form. Okay, so you're going to get something that looks something like this, and you're going to have to determine what it is. The easiest thing to do is, first of all, determine if it's a parabola first. Because remember, a parabola is not going to have both x squared and y squared. Only one of them will be squared. So that makes it easy to identify if it's a parabola first. And then, so here's those equations for the parabola. And then I kind of look for hyperbolas are the next easiest thing to identify, because if your x squareds and your y squareds are on the same side of the equal sign, those values are, one's going to be positive and one's negative, and then it's a hyperbola. For circle and ellipse, okay, after you've eliminated that it's not a parabola or a hyperbola, you tell the difference between these two by looking at the numbers in front of your x squared and your y squared. If those numbers are the same, it's a circle. If they're different, it's an ellipse. And that's essentially all you need to be looking for, first of all, to determine what it is. And then you're going to need to determine what you need to do to complete the square and put it in standard form so that you can find the given information they're going to ask you for, the vertex or the center. So let's look at these two examples that they're going to give you right here. Okay, so, whoops, sorry. So when I look at this first example right here, I see that I have an x squared but no y value. So I know that it is going to be a parabola, okay? And so it's a parabola that I would solve this in terms of y, okay? So I'd have a y equals an x squared, so that parabola is going to be opening up or down. Okay, and then, so you need to review that video how to do that. And then this one, when I'm looking at this one, I see I have an x squared and I have a y squared, but this x value is negative, so this is going to be a hyperbola. Okay, so then you need to put that into the standard form for a hyperbola. So here's just a little quick example of how they did this one for the parabola. This is an example of what that would look like, and then the same thing, you know, you're completing the square for the hyperbola here. Okay, and you can see when you go to click parabola, then it's going to ask you what the vertex is for that, and then for this hyperbola, they want to know the center. Okay, so let's look at another couple. Okay, so for this part A here, we see we have an x squared and we have a y squared. So we know it's not a parabola. We know that neither one of them are negative, so it's not a hyperbola. And we see that the values in front of the x squared and y squared are the same, so it's going to be a circle. Okay, and then you'd need to put it in standard form so you can tell me what the center is. Okay, and then here for part B, you need to go ahead and, let's see, we have x squared, we have y squared, and so we know it's not a parabola. We know it's not a hyperbola because one of them is not negative, and we see that the a squared and the value in front of the x squared and the value in front of the y squared are different, so it's an ellipse. And then you would need to complete the square to put it in standard form on here. Okay? Do maybe one more here. So I'm looking at this first example here they gave me. I have an x squared and a y squared, and I have one of them is negative, so it's a hyperbola. You can kind of see the more you do these, you probably don't have to go through all of that, but that's the process I'd do to start with. So here, this one was a little tricky, so you see I have an x squared and a y squared, so I know it's not a parabola. So this one's a little tricky. They've got two negatives. So because they're two negatives, it is not a hyperbola. If I moved both of these over to the other side of the equation, I'd have two positive values. Okay, so, and those values are both equal, so this is a circle. Okay, so you put those in standard form and find the centers for both of those. Okay, I know I said one more example, but let's look at this one. So x squared and y squareds, again, so not a parabola. This is not a hyperbola because they're both negative, and then they're opposite. The values in front of the x squared and y squared are not the same. So this is going to be an ellipse. So you can see if I move the x squared and y squareds both over to the other side, they both be positive. Okay, so second one, okay, pretty close to the other one. I have x squareds and y squareds. There's both negative, so when I move them back over to the other side, they'll both be positive, and they are the same values, so this is a circle. All right, good luck with those. Let me know if you have any questions.